Felt by many to epitomise glamour, but the job was far from easy.
It was glamorous on the ground, but nobody could say it was glamorous in the air, because I mean, we had no pressurised cabins and our ankles swelled up and all the passengers were sick, and it was not a glamorous job up there. But on the ground, yes, because we had a lot of time off.
Heather Ashley was issued with a handbook on how to be glam.
It was called BEA, Be Elegant Always. And it told us about dressing deportment, how to sit properly, how to stand, keep your head up, always keep your knees and thighs together, sit with one foot slightly behind the other, and just be poised and elegant at all times.
So did all that enable them to meet their millionaires?
I've often read that all the girls married rich men, but I think I missed out somewhere. I married a pilot. They weren't all that rich.
And so now here at Stansted, the stars of the show prepare to take the stage. Although, of course, every aircraft in the Flypast is a star in its own right. There go the two little Gypsy Sixes on the Rapide, 200 horsepower apiece, 160 miles an hour cruising speed, call it 140 for comfort. What a contrast with the red arrows parked behind it. And here's the Comet, 4 Rolls-Royce Avon engines, and you'll notice how they are built into the wing, in contrast to the American practice of hanging them in pods underneath. The de Havilland Comet, beloved of all its pilots because it was one of those very, very few civil airliners which could claim to be overpowered. Coming bang up to date, the Douglas DC-8. You see the point about the engines being in pods under the wing, and compare the size of those engines with the engines of the Comet, which were in their day the most powerful in the world. And just watch that rotation. And now, as they take off to form up for the Flypast, one by one we see the aircraft which mark the milestones of progress along the path of civil aviation.
Hello, London Tower. This is Charlie Fox Peter Baker Dog. Request landing instruction. Over.
After the war, it was the DC-3 which laid the foundation for airline services around the world, changing the face of civil aviation forever. The Lockheed Constellation also became a familiar sight at Heathrow, opening up transatlantic flights, if you could afford the £93 one-way ticket to New York. The Boeing Stratocruiser introduced a new level of passenger comfort with BOAC in the 50s. While the British-built Vickers-Viscount radically improved short and medium-haul travel. Its turboprop engines produced a far smoother ride than any piston-engined aircraft at the time. Britain also led the way in the jet age. Its superior engine technology had given airframe manufacturers like de Havilland a 10-year advantage over its rivals. The Comet, in service with BOAC in 1952, became the world's first jet airliner. But then disaster struck. Metal fatigue caused 3 aircraft to disintegrate in mid-air. The problems were resolved with the Comet 4, which remained in airline service around the world until 1980. But Britain had lost its advantage to the Boeing 707, a new economy fares, which made long-distance travel possible for millions more. Vickers Armstrong countered with the VC-10, which proved successful in hot and high climates, but failed to penetrate the all-important American market. The success of the 707 led in the 70s to the 737, the most successful jet airliner in history. The Hawker-Siddeley Trident boasted another British innovation, an all-weather, fully automatic landing system, used for the first time here at Heathrow in 1973. But it was the Jumbo which was to have the biggest impact ever on airline passenger travel. The Boeing 747, which first flew in 1969, spawned a new age of intercontinental leisure travel, and a new headache for airports. And there were other barriers being broken in the 1960s. The Anglo-French caviar and champagne Concorde will survive amazingly well into the next century. It paved the way for unprecedented European cooperation, which has resulted in the Airbus consortium and its most advanced aircraft, the long-range twin-engined A330. Europe now competes with America head-to-head in almost every sector of the airliner market. The latest Boeing airliner is the 777. Twin-engine jets now fly enormous distances, cutting even further the cost of intercontinental travel.
Well, no aviation program looking back over the past 50 years would be complete without the Trident. It was a common sight in the 1960s, and the aircraft is fondly remembered by many people, not least the Trident Preservation Society. Over the last couple of years, this group of engineers have lovingly restored this Trident 3B, which last flew in 1985.
It's really been a case of giving up everything at the weekend. I mean, certainly fortunately we're restoring it during the summer months, so we'd be like on the aircraft sort of first thing in the morning and working through until sort of 8, 9 o'clock at night. So you didn't get much time down the pub or anything like that.
So the Flypast aircraft have left Stansted Airport. They're due to arrive behind me here on the north runway in the next few minutes. Now, Heathrow has never staged an air show quite like this before. You can imagine the sorts of preparations that have gone into sorting all of this sort of thing out, especially when you think 1,100 aircraft go in and out of this place every single day. Given the amount of preparation, I should think this is the only Flypast to happen for a while to come yet.
Well, we've been getting tremendously excited here, watching the radar screens and watching the approach of the formation. We can't actually see the first two aircraft. Here we're inside the Rapide, which is leading the formation. We've already seen those, of course, at Stansted there, the cramped cockpit of the Rapide. We can't see their actual idents on the radar, just a blip, and here they are now coming in live over. Well, that's probably just Osterley Park, about a couple of miles or so to run to Heathrow. This is all being conducted in silence, and the radar operators are able to track it with the squawk idents. It shows exactly which aircraft is where. Tremendous sight of all the aircraft. They're all a long way out, and there's the Lancaster coming in at 150 knots, 300 feet above the ground. The City of Lincoln from the Battle of Britain Memorial flight, which has come up from behind, underflying the Rapides, to eventually lead the formation as it crosses the threshold. And there it goes. And the Lancaster represents the BOAC Lancastrian, the aircraft that took off from here 50 years ago on the 28th of May to land 63 hours later in Sydney in Australia. Its maximum range, amazingly, was over 4,000 miles, and on the Australia route carried just 6 passengers, each having a bunk, an armchair and a table. Even so, conditions on board these converted bombers lack the elegance and luxury of the old pre-war flying boats of Imperial Airways. And the two de Havilland Rapides. Like the Lancaster, this robustly designed aircraft flew in both civil and military colours. During the war, it flew with the Royal Air Force as the Dominie, but by 1945, it was already looking fragile next to the all-metal monoplanes being built in the 1940s. And there, the magnificent sight of the Bristol freighter, the one that only just made it after working through the night. It was designed in the last years of the war to carry a 3-ton payload, including heavy trucks and guns, 28 stretchers and attendants, 36 fully equipped troops, or 23 paratroopers or other military loads into the Burmese jungle.